have been lied to. Getting good isn't just about talent or putting in the right amount of time. It's actually about how you practice that's the most important. And today I'm going to give you a science-based and evidence-based blueprint that will make you insanely good at lead guitar over the next year. I know it sounds gimmicky, but this actually worked for me. I've been testing this approach that I'm about to show you in my own playing over the last few years, and my progress has skyrocketed. But here's the thing, it's not easy and it's going to require a lot of time over the next year. So the approach that I used was discovered by a neuroscientist actually and a researcher named Anders Ericsson. So basically Ericsson and his colleagues, they studied top conservatory musicians at the Berlin Academy of Music. And the study that they did often is cited for the 10,000 hour rule, but it's not what people think. It's not just put in 10,000 hours and you become a master. It's far from that. So what they did in this study is they divided students into 3 groups. First group was the best performers, those that were on track to become world-class soloists. The second group was good performers, those who would likely end up as music teachers or local professionals. And the third group, average performers, those with no real professional aspirations or wouldn't make it to that point. Now, when Ericsson studied how they practiced, he found the best students actually practiced the same total hours per week as the other students, but they spent most of it doing deliberate practice, not casual practice. So what's deliberate practice? Well, they zoomed in and focused on short, difficult passages or technical issues, whereas the other students just repeated things over and over from beginning to end. The next thing they did was they analyzed their own mistakes immediately, often using a teacher or a recording of themselves that they did. The next thing they did is they didn't just jam or just play around in their practice. About 2/3 of their practice was spent drilling these micro passages and these very nuanced details of their technique. And that's what separated them. Not talent, but the quality of attention per hour. So again, it wasn't the amount of hours, it was the quality of attention per hour that mattered. So in this video, I'm gonna give you my exact deliberate practice blueprint that I used. And what we're gonna cover in this blueprint is number one, the number one thing that's holding you back from soloing fast and clean across the neck. It's the number one thing for most people. Second thing is the focus hack to speed up your learning process. How much time you need to practice every day. The 3 steps to deliberate practice as opposed to casual, mindless practice. How creating music will help you actually get better at your skills. And lastly, the most important skill to master as a lead guitar player. With that said, let's dive into number one. Most likely the number one thing that's holding you back is most likely not that you need to learn more music theory or that you need to use your triads better. I mean, all that stuff is important, especially for musicality, but for most people, and I've taught hundreds and hundreds of students, I've worked with hundreds, probably thousands of students on their lead guitar playing in my courses, private lessons, and so forth. And the number one thing usually always is their technical skills hold them back. You can learn theory. It's relatively easy to learn theory and like how to use it, how to use your scales, how to use your triads, even how to use your modes. But if your technical skills are stopping you from playing what you're hearing in your head or playing like your favorite guitar players, then it's no fun at all. All the other stuff doesn't matter. All the theory doesn't matter. It's technical skills that you need to be focused on if you want to really execute on the guitar. The second thing in this blueprint is a focus hack that I like to use to speed up my learning process. And this is something that Anders Ericsson found in his studying and research, is that students who focus on one single skill or one single thing at a time, they made the biggest progress. And I know that sounds so obvious, but for example, if you only have 30 minutes a day to practice or an hour a day to practice, I highly recommend focusing on one single technical skill like alternate picking or sweeping or legato. So compartmentalize your practice into skills, alternate picking, sweep picking, legato, whatever it is, and then work on combining them as well. Third thing is how much time do you need to practice every day to make actual real progress? And I'm not gonna sugarcoat it for you, okay? It takes a lot of time. Even if you have the right approach, which I'm teaching you today, specifically the next step's the most important, even if you have that, you need to put in a lot of time. And that's why this isn't for the faint of heart. I say it's not for the faint of heart, it's for the neurotic. Because you have to be kind of neurotic to spend this much time on getting good at your guitar playing. So I personally think that you need to be spending an hour to 2 hours minimum a day on just your technical skills. And that's not even including working on your creativity and your theory. If you want to get to a really good level, if you don't care about playing like fast solos, like if your favorite guitarists, aren't Randy Rhoads or John Petrucci or like these fast iconic lead guitar players, if you're more of a David Gilmour guy, then maybe you don't need to spend as much time on technical skill, but you still, I would say, at least an hour a day. And that's over years. Now I'm saying you can get really good and insanely good over the next year alone. That is true, but that's just the first step. That's just the first year. You need to keep compounding over the next years, for 1, 2, 3 hours a day. The next part of the blueprint, the most important part, is how to actually engage in deliberate practice. So again, the 3 components or the 3 steps to deliberate practice that Anders Ericsson found was you have to zoom in on short, difficult passages within your music or within your guitar solo. And even further, you have to zoom in and hyper-focus on specific technical issues. Maybe it's how you're holding the pick, maybe it's how you're crossing or transitioning to a new string. So that's the first thing. Zoom in and hyper-focus on very detailed issues that you're encountering. The next thing is to be able to know what you're doing wrong in the first place, you have to analyze what's going on, when you zoom in. So this sort of analysis might come from a teacher or a coach or something like that, or it might come from just your own awareness, from watching YouTube videos and hearing stuff, or it might just come from, recording yourself and listening back to it or watching back to it. You might see or hear some issues that you can fix. This should be the majority of your practice. Now, jamming and improvising and playing casually for fun, it's a good thing. You should do it and you need to do it every day. But as far as like dedicated, focused, deliberate practice, the majority of your practice should be spent doing this sort of detailed, zooming in, micro passage work. So I did this when I was learning Cliffs of Dover. I was stuck on Cliffs of Dover for years. And I finally got to the level where I could play it decently, pretty much almost full speed. So let me show you how I use this idea of deliberate practice of zooming in, fixing your mistakes at a micro level, and then fusing the transitions together. Now the intro solo starts out like this, and then it goes. So that's the first part right there. And that's at a pretty fast speed right there. I don't even think that's quite full speed, but you get the idea. That's the first part, and it's an extremely hard passage to play. The whole intro is just insanely difficult. So basically how I worked on this is I learned from a source. You can call this a mentor. This is part of the deliberate practice, is getting feedback and analysis from a mentor or filming yourself. And I actually learned this from a mentor who doesn't know who he's my mentor, which is Troy Grady. And I learned about this concept of economy picking, down, down, up, down, where you basically do a rest stroke where you do a downstroke on one string and then another down on the adjacent string, and then you continue alternate picking. So this is something Eric Johnson does a lot, and I figured out that this makes a lot of his style of playing a lot easier. So this actually happens right here, right there. So this little passage, down, down, up, down. It's almost like a sweep, and it's an economy picking technique. Right there. Okay, now if I alternate picked that, it wouldn't be nearly as smooth and it would be a little bit more difficult. That said, this movement isn't easy though either. This idea of pick plant, up, down. It's not easy. So what I had to do, just like these students at the Berlin Academy were doing, I had to zoom in on that specific spot and work on this down, pick plant, down, up motion. It was very foreign to me, but I knew that I had to zoom in and really work on this in order to master this section of the song. Now, to get even more specific, I realized I needed to slant my pick at a slight downward angle on these pick plants, pick plant, bam. And then I needed to like sort of get used to a really relaxed wrist so that I can transition from down, pick plant, to alternate picking. And this requires a really loose wrist. So something I focused on in this was not only the motion, but how I basically had my wrist, how relaxed my wrist was during this. And to really be able to effectively work within this tiny passage, what the most effective thing to do, I think, is to engage the edge of your ability. Engage the edge of your ability. What does that mean? That means you put on a metronome and you have to find the specific speed that it starts to get a little difficult, because I can work on this passage, but if I don't have a metronome going and I'm working at random speeds, it's going to take me a lot longer because I'm going to be fluctuating at speeds that are way too high and way too intense, or I'm going to be going too slow. The most progress takes place at the edge of your ability, at the edge of your comfort zone. And it's really hard to gauge where that's at unless you're using a metronome. Now, the beginning of the solo doesn't have a real time to it. So I called these triplets and I put on a metronome and I specifically started on a click of the metronome and ended on a click. So I was working within a very specific section and I was working on a very specific technique, which was down, up. Pick slant, relaxed wrist. So if I have the metronome going, so that right there is triplets. I'm starting on like a pickup note, right? So this first note, it's on the last note right before a downbeat. So this note is on a downbeat. And that last note is on a downbeat. So I figured out that this was like the speed that it was starting to fall apart at. So I really needed to work on these motions, this relaxed wrist movement, this like economy picking style, down, up, down. I needed to work on this at the edge of my ability here. And then I add a little bit more. The second to last part of this blueprint is how creating music will actually help you get better. So as you're building your technical skills, I find it's extremely important to use them, especially as you're making breakthroughs, because mostly just for the fact that it's going to keep you inspired and keep you motivated. So I think something that helps is to make a goal of writing every day at the end of your practice, or writing a song or writing a guitar solo once a week or once a month. And taking these skills that you're learning and actually putting them, to something. Now, there is a sport aspect involved with guitar, and that's fun and that's fine, the technical stuff. But at the end of the day, what is all of this for if it's not to, either create or enjoy or play something meaningful, something that you've created. I think everyone has something within them that they can create. And I think it's really important to stay creative because it keeps you inspired and it keeps you going. Now, before I give you the last part of the blueprint, what we've covered so far is that it is important to focus on one skill or one thing at a time that will expedite your learning process. For technical skills specifically, you should be putting in an hour to 2 hours a day if you have the time. If you don't have the time and you only have 30 minutes or something, that's fine. But I would limit your practice to one specific skill. Like if you have 30 minutes a day, work on just alternate picking, for example, for like 3 months straight or something. The next thing we talked about is this 3 steps of deliberate practice. And that is zooming in, figuring out exactly what your mistakes are and why you're making the mistakes, and then fix them one at a time. And of course, then you need to fuse the transitions together. And then lastly, we talked about how being creative and using your skills to create something is really important to make this whole thing meaningful and to keep you going. And the last thing I think is The number one most important thing that you want to learn, that you should learn, in my opinion, if you want to get good at lead guitar playing, is how to string transition effectively. You need to understand what's something called pick slanting. And if you don't understand pick slanting and how to transition strings with your pick at high speeds, clean, then that's going to be an issue for you. So if you want to learn about that, click this video right here, and we'll see you in the next one.